what we're going to do today is essentially just go through a demonstration of some new features that we've just released so that you guys can see the different ways that we can use it and also how to edit it for your specific sites should you want to include them. So today we're going to be discussing the summary page changes, and that kind of rolls into the lesson certificates that we have available. Both of these things may be items that you don't use on your site currently, and that's fine. We've tried to update the summary page so that it's got a more modern look and feel, and it's actually a little bit easier to include in your program. So we'll kind of walk through that. Do I need to share my screen?
You should.
I do. Okay, so that's that, and we'll just show all this stuff down here. Ooh, that's cool how that does that. Right. So what we've got is our demo site that we use for stuff like this quite often. And what I want to do is I'll go in and register as a new user so that you can just see these bits and pieces from a brand new person's point of view. Bear with me while I try and type everything correctly. Fingers crossed. Okay, perfect. So what I've done is I've set up 4 different demo modules to show you, and really I'm only going to go through 2 of them because the different features that we're going to be looking at, I'll kind of group them together. So the first one we're going to look at is a module that you're not submitting for marking. So this is a general starting point that most people use. You don't need to send it to a facilitator for marking. It's just kind of an open module, and it does not have a lesson certificate attached to it. Now, if you're unfamiliar with lesson certificates, these are certificates that are associated with a specific module. So you may have heard of pathway certificates, and they're attached to the entire pathway. These are, have I passed this module, full stop? And that's the nice thing about it, is that you can really specify when people earn them. You can attach it to a specific module on a pathway, so it's quite handy for that. This module, however, doesn't have one. So what we're going to be looking at are the changes that we've made to the summary page in general. So for this one, we just have some introductory text, and then one question. And then when we access the summary page, what we now have are pop-up feedback pieces that will jump up straight away for your users when they land on the summary page. This is something that is a new addition. We didn't have this before, and this is to provide a little bit more UI and a little bit of a better user experience for people who may have additional tasks that they need to complete off of the summary page. So for this one, it is just saying, hey, great job, you've actually finished this module and you passed it. So that's pretty handy. And then when we click off of that, what I want you guys to see are 2 new features. So we have this continue button up here, and the continue button is something that defaults to taking the user directly into the next module on the pathway. So if you have a line of, say, 5 modules and they're doing them in order, you can leave it at the default setting, and when they finish a module, they can review their scores and then click continue and go straight on to the next piece of learning. So it's a way more seamless experience. They don't have to get back to the pathway, click on the next module and continue on. So we've kind of removed 2 clicks from that process, essentially, and it allows you to go straight through. Now, the other thing I want you to see is a return to question link. So for those of you who have a little bit longer modules and you've got questions that you really do want your users to engage with and make sure that they're getting the answers right, we've included a link here that will take them back to that particular question so that they can reattempt it. So this is really handy when you're going through the formal marking process, where you're having people submit a module to a facilitator, and the facilitator's looking at it and saying, well, you actually need to look at these 3 things, go back and address them. The user can access the summary page and get straight back to that particular question. They don't have to hunt through a bunch of slides. So a way more seamless experience for them there as well. I'm very happy with both of those personally, like just from my own standpoint. I think it just, it really will help with the online learning experience, full stop, and make it a little bit easier for people. So that's really good. Now, because we had a format that was not really easy for people to engage with. We usually would default a lot of modules to not having the summary page at all. So what I can show you now is how to turn that feature on. So on this window, we are in as an author and we're looking at the module settings. So if we go to the settings particularly, what I've got down here are the summary page settings. So if you want to use a summary page on a module and it may not be there, you can look in the settings area and make sure that this is clicked to show instead of skip. And what that means is that instead of the user going straight back to the pathway, which was skip, you will actually have show turned on, which will take them to the summary page first. So it depends on the type of workflow you want your users to have. If you're happy with them not seeing their answers and going straight back to the pathway, then you can just set that up with skip. If you want them to have kind of a moment to re-engage with what they've done, then flip it to show, and that's fine. Now, the thing I want to point out is the submission feature. These settings in particular will drive some of those pop-up feedback pieces that you were seeing. So if you have summary pages and you're getting users that are coming to you and they're saying, I keep getting a notification about submission, but I don't have anything that needs to be submitted, just check these settings and make sure that this is turned off. That is just dictating whether or not the submission notification pops up for them or not. So if you're finding that that's coming up on your end, just double check that you've got submission settings set up correctly. Right, so that is that one. And what we'll do is we'll get back to our pathway and then we'll have a look at the submit with certificate. So when I start this one, you'll notice the format's very similar, a little bit of instruction and then one question. And then when they reach the end, what we'll have is remember to submit. So this is the feedback I was talking to you about with the submit setting. If you have submit turned on, this is the feedback your users will get. So this is really handy for you guys.
But you have no idea how much this has changed things for us.
Has it made a really big difference?
Oh yeah, like
good.
The other day they had 188 listens to it. And it's just like,
that's great. Good, good.
Yeah, just it's huge.
Okay, good. That's what we want.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, fantastic. So
Lauren, I've got a question. Just to make sure, with what you've just shown us, we went back into our modules on that settings page. Is the button defaulted to submit or not submit?
So the button has been defaulted to submit and show.
Okay, cool.
So any of your old modules will have submit and show turned on, but anything from our next roll forward will have submit as defaulted to off for that reason that I mentioned before, with people getting weird notifications as to why their users are asked to submit things. That was just how the system was set up originally, was that these two were defaulted on, but we've noticed now that it's actually better to have submission off as a default. Yeah.
So for us, for example, all of our ones are submitted.
Yeah.
So for all the new modules that we actually do, I'll need to go in and push the submit to tutor button.
Correct. You'll just want to make sure that that's turned on. Yeah.
Yeah. That's excellent.
Great question, Murray.
Good question. Murray, I love having you at these things. You always
I've got some dumbass ones to come.
No, that's good. That's good. Okay, so that's your notification for the submission. And then you'll notice there's a little bit of a difference here as well. So instead of just having the continue button, they now have a submit button as well. So this used to sit down the bottom and it got lost because it was down in the corner and nobody would see it. So we've made a concerted effort to move all of the important stuff up to the top. The other thing you can see is that we now have a certificate icon here, and you'll notice that this is grayed out, and that is because we have not earned it yet, because this module must be submitted before the certificate is earned. So if you have a lesson certificate attached to a module where submission is required, even if they've scored 1 out of 1, they will not earn that certificate until a facilitator has seen it and sent it back to them. So that is worth noting at this point. Now, if you want to see a pretty fancy certificate, we'll have a look at this first module. And this one is no submission required, but you can earn a certificate if you pass it. So for this one, our pass rate is set at 1, which is that question. And then you'll notice that this one will have a nice, pretty certificate achieved. And when I click OK, you'll see that this icon is now green. And the user will have 3 different ways that they can access lesson certificates if you decide to use these. So they can access them off the summary page, which opens it in a new window as a PDF. Nice, pretty PDF. You can also reach these from your account settings area. So this is like your user profile. And you'll see that I've earned this certificate, and it sits here as a link that you can access. You can set expiry dates for these as well. So this is kind of handy if you've got health and safety requirements that expire after a year, 3 months, or whatever. The other place you can access them is from the progress page for that particular pathway. So if I click that progress bar, you'll see the 4 modules that I have access to. The ones that have NA mean that there's no certificate associated with that module. The one that's not achieved is the one that requires submission, so I haven't earned it because it's not been returned. And the one that's achieved is the one that we just saw, so I can actually open it from here as well. As a facilitator, you can also access your tutor panel and see what certificates your users have earned there at the same time. So it's a nice way to kind of say, hey, good job, you've actually done something, but it gives you a way that you can check it and or send it or print it off to them if they can't find it. So that's an easy option as well. Yeah, so yeah, go ahead.
When the certificate expires, how do you see that? What does it look like? How does it show? Do you get an email or is it a...
There's no notification associated with it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like for that specific certificate, it would have, let me go ahead to this one. We can set these up in any way, shape, or form you want. So we can include a certificate line here, or that could say, you know, expiry date is blah.
Okay, so
But
it's
there's
just a piece of text.
It's just a piece of text,
Okay.
yeah. At this stage, there's nothing in our system that kind of
So
provides a
it's not like a
notification.
scheduler.
No, it's not a scheduler, yeah. Good question. So yeah, that's kind of the back end of that. Now, if you want to set up these lesson certificates, I can go into some more information on that. We were kind of just gearing this towards the lesson summary, but I'm happy to talk more about those if you guys want to hear more about that.
I will be keen.
Yeah, you're keen? Okay. What needs to be done for these, because they're set up as PDFs, we can actually create this into a really long document. So the pathway certificates that we have, we were a bit constrained because it could only be 1 page and it could only be a certain size. And it didn't work as a PDF, you had to print it off. So with these, they show up as a PDF. It's read only, so it can't be edited. They can download it, they can print it, they can do whatever they want. We have 4 different types of fields that we can include. So we can have the user's name, first and last. You can have the date that the certificate's created, the date it expires, and the module title. So we can include like, you've earned such and such certificate for this module that gets inserted when they get it, which is pretty handy. Now to do that, what you need access to is a program called Adobe, what's their PDF thing called? I can't think, it's just gone out of my head. Adobe Acrobat, thank you. And that will allow you to edit a document and create a form structure. This is something we're more than happy to do for you. If you have a certificate you're using now, or you've got an idea for something that you want, we can create a PDF format and attach it to the module. But I can also come up with some instructions for people if they want to try and do this on their own. The thing you want to remember is when you're attaching them, you'll need to make sure that your specific site has this feature turned on. So if you are editing your modules and you go into the module settings area and you don't see this area for module certificates, just get in touch with your Bracken representative and ask them to turn that feature on. And then we can walk you through how to set up the PDF files should you want to do that on your own. And what we do is select the file itself, and then you can assign the expiry date here. And you've got the ability to preview it to see what it looks like and or remove it. Now, it's important to understand that with these certificates, when you attach a lesson certificate to a module, when the user finishes it, they have no way to reset it. The module will lock for them once they run that certificate. So our best practice in terms of handling these modules when you need to update them is to actually replace them with a brand new module. I think we do have a way to manually reset them for the users. I'll have to double check on that. But it is worth understanding that when you do use them, they are meant to be a really solid certificate. So it would be a matter of swapping the module out for an updated version if you wanted to have kind of a new thing rolling. We'll probably end up with lots of questions on this, I imagine, and I may have to defer.
Might have to come back.
Yeah, it's totally fine. Roll it around in your head, think about what you need, but feel free to come to us with kind of like your wish list if you want to use these, and any questions that you have, and we can kind of.
A quick one for you, the date, is it the date completed or the date, you know the way at the moment our certificates at the date you print?
Yes.
Will it be a date completed or a date printed?
You'll get both. So if you include in your PDF a field form for date completed and expiry date, you would get two different.
So it's completed, not printed?
Completed, not printed.
Cool.
Yeah. Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
And that's the big strong point.
Yeah.
Because the pathway certificates are just the date you've
Yeah,
accessed. Yeah, which is a little bit.
No, that's really good.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. What we've got on this demo site, I've set this up as its own zone. So when we send out an email, a follow-up email, I'll include the join code for this. So if you want to go in as a user and play around with it, go nuts, feel free to. And I'll try and log in every once in a while as a facilitator to send stuff back so that you guys can see kind of what that looks like. But yeah, so that's kind of the presentation we had for today. And if you've got any questions about that, go for it.